And I have to continue to remind myself that I define my happy. I define my sense of success, my sense of value. And if I own it wholeheartedly and feel like I am moving down my path in earnest, that's enough.
Now, you were the former mayor of East Palo Alto, and over countless years, you've held leadership positions at blue chip tech companies like eBay and Facebook, and most recently MindBody. And your journey has been beautifully atypical, and it's also blended heart and intellect in such a beautiful way. Knowing you are a student of self-study, I'd love to hear how self-awareness or self-reflection has contributed to your decisions, your career decisions thus far.
You know, it's a good question, and it's a loaded question, because if I reflect back on my entire adult career, I would probably have different answers along the way, but I'm going to, I think, spend the majority of my time just talking about the last couple of years. And the reason is that those years have dealt us all a real blow, that we were all somehow together trying to find our way through a global pandemic. And that pandemic had many rippling effects for me and for the world. For example, it wasn't until the pandemic that I calculated the complexity of seeing sick loved ones when you're afraid to travel, right? Or, the complication of essential workers who had children and no place to put them every day because schools were closed. Or, the complexity of a growing infection rate in a city that is a beautiful place to live, but that has complexities that we have to continue to overcome. For example, I remember when our first test site in the county was open, it was open 14 miles away. And my county supervisors could not explain why we weren't getting tons and tons of people from East Palo Alto that were going to the event center 14 miles away. And in that case, many of our residents, some were undocumented, some did not have health insurance. There were all kinds of language accessibility concerns. And so the last couple of years have really taught me to pull from a different place. I've always been a professional that cared about technology and cared about people, and have, as you said, had this sort of very beautiful but non-traditional journey professionally. And what I've always said is that I want to work on technology problems, but only to the extent that they make people and their lives better. For me, it's not, everyone needs to make some amount of money to sustain themselves and their families. But for me, that's not my primary concern. It is really about, as you said, being a student and taking in from the world what it needs from us as technologists, and then bringing those things to life. So, so to answer your question directly, I lost a sister in COVID, my younger sister. She had battled cancer for 5 years. And it wasn't until 2020 that I began to embrace the idea that she was not going to make it. And here I was in the middle, the mayor of my city, dealing with all of our tragedies, and also a senior executive at a company that was really supporting individuals in their wellness journeys, but the majority of those practices had to close in COVID. So, revenue was at risk. We had business owners that were on edge, consumers not able to engage in their daily health practices. And then here I was 2,000 miles away from my little sister who was battling a very, very aggressive breast cancer. And so, for me, 2020 was really a moment where I said, we got to scale this differently. Because if we stay on this path, if I stay on this path, the way that I am currently running my race, I will be out of gas by the end of the year. And I have many, many more things to live for. So I changed my practices, my health practices, everything from my fitness practices to my mental health practices to my social engagement practices. Everything was up for reimagination. And I just kept saying to myself, let's get rid of everything that is not serving you and this world in this moment, and let's pour into you new things that are going to help you find your resilience. And so that's really where my focus has been, and I really feel pretty grateful to have a platform today to talk others through it, because my one strong belief is that we have experiences so that we can share with others and allow others to access the places from which we drew our strengths so that they can potentially look there too.
How beautiful. There's this saying from Sadhguru. He says, the more wounds we have, the more wiser we become. But you've taken that a step further by associating that with helping people around us as well.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little bit about your gratitude practice. And I want to start by giving you this beautiful quote. If we counted our blessings instead of our money, we would all be rich.
Mm-hmm.
Linda Poindexter.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a very keen insight on gratitude. I want to share what you've said in the past. In modern society, we have effectively cultivated a spirit of entitlement. We seem to be constantly ready to articulate what we need and deserve.
Mm-hmm.
When we orient ourselves toward entitlement, it is very easy to become numb to other ways of being, such as gratefulness.
Mm-hmm.
Taking a moment every day to reflect on life, to breathe, to know you're free from sickness, to enjoy laughter, music, love, gives us a way of reorientating ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Regina, I found that so inspiring. And what a great observation, because what you're doing essentially is you're linking entitlement to a scarcity mindset. This idea that we feel we're entitled, so we're constantly telling ourselves we don't have enough.
Mm-hmm.
We need more. We need more. And when we tell ourselves that, we miss out on seeing everything that we do have.
Mm-hmm.
I love this so much. I'd love if you could expand on it and tell us how you got to this beautiful idea, conception of it.
I'm going to tell you two stories, both which happened in the very recent past. One of them was about my eldest daughter. So for the last 2 years, we've been safely trying to move around the country and the world, in some cases because of work obligations, in some cases because of family traditions. And obviously this is all limited in some ways by the new travel standards inside of COVID. But I was celebrating at the beginning of January the fact that we had made it through 2 years having to do some airplane travel, some other kinds of travel, be in other places, without ever touching COVID. And I felt myself get upset one day when my eldest daughter came home and shared that she had shared her water bottle with one of her teammates. And that simple act of sharing changed 2 years of hard work, because she did contract COVID.
Oh, wow.
And brought it into the entire house. And I said to myself, how can I catch myself in this moment and redirect it towards a spirit of gratitude, right? Because here I was thinking, we don't deserve to be infected. We've done all the right things. We put on all the right masks. We've done, all the right sanitizers. We've done all the right vaccinations and boosters. And yet it's still in here because of an irresponsible choice for my daughter. And when I sat back for a second, I asked myself, is she different from any other junior high student? No, most junior high students would share a water bottle at some point in their lives. I asked myself, could it have been any more devastating? And the answer was, it wasn't devastating at all. Sure, the mental devastation of now having this thing that we've all been talking about was a thing. But the truth is, in that moment, we were vaccinated, we were boosted. And even though everyone got infected, it visited our home like a very basic cold. And so I could have, clearly a year or so ago, it'd been much worse. My mother-in-law lives with us. She's a senior citizen. She has some complicating conditions that would have made it really hard for her to be infected prior to a vaccination and a booster, but she wasn't. And so all at once, right, this mental idea that I should be upset about something just dissipated, right, in favor of, oh, how grateful am I that we got it when we were vaccinated and boosted and able to move through it with the sense of calm and ease, right? So that was number one story. The second was my husband and I went for a walk on Saturday. And, this podcast is me. It's not really me putting everyone else's business out in the streets, but my husband tends to agonize over, will we have enough? Will we have enough to retire? Will we have enough to leave endowments to our children? Will we have enough to, in this case, take care of and help support my sister's children who are now deceased? And she left us with some wishes that she had for us with respect to her 3 daughters. And so, I looked at him on Saturday, and here we are in the middle of this, strenuous hike. And I said to him, babe, I recognize that we should all be thinking about our capacity, like what we can actually do. And we should absolutely be thoughtful about what we leave behind for our children. I said, at the end of the day, though, we happen to be a family that is probably doing better than 90% of America and 99% of the world. So if it's not enough for us, right, then we have to ask ourselves, how at risk is the rest of the world, right? Because if everyone's not waking up having the same agonizing discussion, then what it means is that 99% of the world is going to fall off the face of the earth, right, when it's all said and done. And if that's not what we want, then what we should be orienting our mindset around is, how do we make sure that everybody has enough, right? And it just sort of dissipated the conversation, because we were going down a very particular path, right? We have to do this, 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 we have to do this. And the truth is, we've done quite a lot. And it's not that we can't do more. Everyone can always do more. But at this point, we should be turning our attention to just making sure that even more people can move through this life with a sense of valiance, with a serious sense of victory, with a sense of comfort and composure. And that's where my mental mindset is right now, which is why I very much straddle between public service work and technology work.
Beautifully said, Regina. And, it's a great segue to this next question about your attitude towards letting go. You have this attitude toward gratitude, and you also have this attitude towards letting go.
Mhm.
And this idea that you were talking about with your husband on this walk, a lot of it is about how much can we control? How much can we just let go? And something changed in my life when I learned from the Bhagavad Gita, one of these ancient Indian texts,
Yeah.
that, you know, one of the things it talked about is have a selfless purpose,
Mhm.
give your 100% to that selfless purpose, but let go after 100% is done.
Mhm.
And so many of us are caught in this idea that the more we work, the more we can control our
Mhm.
destiny, the more we can control how much money we make or the outcomes in our career. And I want to read to you something you've also said in the past. When I crossed the chasm into my 40s, I remember letting go of the idea that I could somehow work hard enough to control all outcomes.
Mhm.
You also went on to say, everything happens exactly as it should.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we're talking about ways that bring yourself inner peace, that bring you calm. Isn't that such a wonderful way to
Mhm.
give us that calm and peace by saying to ourselves, this is when we're going to let go?
Mhm. For sure. For sure. And I really had to go back and double down on that uh, thinking as I was saying farewell to my sister, right? I mean, because it's hard for us to uh, logically embrace that our younger siblings should somehow leave the planet before we do. And that uh, the pieces of their lives that they leave behind, uh, that we have some way of making sense of all of it. So as easy as it was for me to cross into that mental mindset in my 40s, I will say that saying farewell to my sister really tested that belief, right? Because it's hard at some point when you're standing over her body and her possessions and all of that to say, this is exactly as it should be,
Yeah.
right? And yet, even in her loss, I have found some moments of beauty. For example, I remember being stuck in Dallas, which is where my sister and her family lived and live. And I was trying to get back to the Bay Area, and flights were getting canceled because of weather. And I was so upset. But finally, I called my mother, who is also in Dallas, my mother and my father, and I said, hey, I'm stuck here for the weekend. Can I crash at your house? And they said, yes. And we're going to uh, Mackenzie's volleyball game. Do you want to join us at the game? Well, my younger sister was 4 years younger than me. So by the time she was really playing high school sports, I was in college. I never got to see her play. And so coming to this volleyball game or going to that volleyball game was very special because she was really good, right? And she happens to be the one niece that is most shaped like my younger sister. And so I felt like I had been given a moment to both enjoy my niece, but also to take a peek at what it might have been like to see my sister, my younger sister, playing when she was around that age. And so I just think that this mindset serves us well, right? That if we continue to challenge ourselves to find the light, to find the good, to find the hope, to find the possibility, that it has this really rich and transformative way of making life much more enjoyable, making our journey through it much more palatable, and creating a sense of resiliency that we really need in this life to move forward with strength. So thank you for reminding me of that. And thank you for challenging me, or at least recognizing and acknowledging and helping me acknowledge that even when we are determined and have full resolve in the things that we believe, that there are circumstances that cause us to question, challenge, and retry and relitigate our conclusions. But I still landed in this case on that answer and continue to use this life as a way of drawing that out in the most profound ways.
Yes, and I hear so much of spirituality in these ideas. You know, you brought up before how we try to intellectualize a lot of things, logic, using reasoning. Hope isn't that. You know, there's so many things that we utilize that aren't intellectual. They're coming from somewhere else. And how beautiful to talk about those that create such a rich life. I want to end by talking about your definition of success. You know, in today's world where, and you're in this, we have so much of this focus on growth, on who is going to be the next unicorn? How do we cash out of this company? How do we get our next round of funding? And so on and so forth here in Silicon Valley and elsewhere. The idea sometimes about success at the end of every day becomes difficult for people who, and us included, I'm sure, who often see success as something that's in the future or unattainable today. So we don't feel at peace today. There is a beautiful definition of success that's been given by the legendary coach John Wooden. He says, I define success by peace of mind, which can be attained only through self-satisfaction and knowing you made the effort to become the best of which you are capable of. I found it
I love that.
Such a peaceful way to think about success, because it's you versus you. It's saying, did you give your best today? If so, that's successful. How do you define success for you today at the end of the day, and how would you define it more generally?
So what I love about the quote that you read me is that it reminds me of my journey in playing golf. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm not particularly athletic, even though I have found my inner fit woman in the last year and a half. But what I love about golf is that you're never playing anyone else out there on the course, right? You're always playing yourself. You're playing your best self in your last game, or you're setting your next mark for your future self to be. And so it's been a sport that I have been fooling around with for the last decade, and have finally kind of gotten into this stance and this mode where I feel like when I get out there, I am having a successful journey on the course, because the balls are going where I want them to go and doing what I want them to do. So when I reflect this back on my actual life, here's the thing that I frequently say. And this won't be the first time that I've said this, but this is absolutely how I think about my life. That each of us, but I'll be specific and name myself, has a series of things that we are solving for. I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to be a wife. I wanted to be a public servant. I wanted to be a tech executive. I wanted to be an awesome sister. I wanted to be a great daughter, right? These are all of the things that are moving around in my ethos as I walk in this life. And I want to have social impact and social value for the people around me. Now, when I was much younger, what that looked like was that I was moving in lots of different directions. And what was interesting about when I was younger was that was when the emerging age of specialization was really coming into focus, right? Because when I was in high school, the protege kid was the best all around, right? The one who could do a little bit of everything. And then Google and other companies started to say, no, all of this all around stuff, not so amazing. We really need very strict specialists in lots of areas, right? And that wasn't me, right? And so I said, look, there are some people that want to pick one variable and optimize for that variable, right? These will be the people who want to be a CEO, and they will be a CEO by the age of 32, because that's all that they're going to focus on, is being a CEO of, the next great company. And there are some people who want to be great moms and or great dads, right? And so everything will be in service to that, and they will most assuredly have amazing kids, and they will be very proud of that thing. And if I want to do a little bit of a lot of things, what it means is that I cannot look around at the world around me and say, oh, that person is a CEO at the age of 32 and I'm 48 and I'm not a CEO, so I'm a failure. Or this person is a great mother and all of their kids are valedictorians of their classes and my kids aren't that, so I'm a terrible mother, right? I cannot evaluate myself in that way. I have to constantly be looking at the calculus of my own life and asking myself, of the 10 or 12 or 15, in my case, it happens to be approaching 20 variables that I am optimizing for, am I moving the ball down the field in all of the areas? Is there one area that is undermining another area that I need to look at and change? Are there areas that are less important for me today than they were yesterday that I need to remove? Are there new areas that I need to add? And the byproduct of that is that I'm going to move slower. So I have known for the last 20 years that I am going to move through the calculus of my own life slower than a lot of specialists who are focusing in their one or very short list of areas. And that's okay, because that calculus is the calculus that makes me happy. And I have to continue to remind myself that I define my happy. I define my sense of success, my sense of value. And if I own it wholeheartedly and feel like I am moving down my path in earnest, that's enough.
Beautiful, Regina. And to have the fortitude and the courage to say, I'm not going to look at anybody else. I am going to only focus on what I'm capable of and in control of. That is difficult in today's age. And to do that, though, provides true health.
Totally.
Thank you so much, Regina. For more on how to find calm and freedom in a fast-paced world, hit the subscribe button below. And please share this wisdom with someone you love.